Okay, so welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I am Kaylee Bateman, the Content Director at SheCanCode. We are on a mission to close the gender gap. Please do take part in our Q&A session today. If you submit your questions, we will try and get to them at the end. As you already know, the title of this 40-minute webinar is Quick Wins to Create an Inclusive Remote Engineering Team. And I have some amazing guests joining me today from Capco and Artisan Studios. Hello, ladies. Thank you for joining us and taking part in this discussion today.
Hi there. Hi, Kaylee. I'm Emily Turner. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us on this exciting panel today. I'm a partner at Capco. We are a global financial services consulting and technology firm, and I'm really thrilled to be here. I started my career as an engineer many years ago, and I look forward to sharing some perspectives with you. Thanks.
Thank you, Emily. And we also have Sheikha with us as well today. Hello, Sheikha.
Hello, Carrie. Hello, everyone. My name is Shikha Singh, and I am a QA automation lead, and I work for Artisan Studios, and I've been in the industry for almost 9 years now. And I'm really excited for this webinar and discussing a lot about remote working.
Lovely, and thank you. We're excited to have you on. As mentioned, please do put in your questions into the Q&A. We'll try and get to them at the end, but we're going to jump straight in because it's only a 40-minute session, and we are going to today we're going to be discussing the ways that companies can create a culture of connectivity, support and success in a remote world. So let's jump straight in with the first question then, ladies. How do we ensure that engineers feel part of the team, the wider company and the mission? Emily, do you want to start us off?
Hi, yes, thank you. So at Capco, which is a company of about 6,000 people globally across North America, Europe, Asia, I'm really pleased to say our engineering practice is going from strength to strength. And during COVID and working remotely, that has been a challenge for all of us. And I'm sure we all feel that we lost a bit of that sense of belonging. However, being a consultant in engineering at Capco, you have two homes. You have your account, which is the client where you spend your day. And you also have the broader engineering family, which is your community across whatever projects you do. And across those two families, we spend a lot of time trying to make sure we're offering employee choice between working full-time remotely if they wish, or being in the office, or a hybrid of the two. So we do a lot of social activities, some of them online, a lot of them also in the office, regular meetings to get to know how the project's going, how their account's running. And then in the engineering family, we spend quite a lot of our time focusing on how to get the community together, what are our objectives and key results. And we've grown from 45 people in the UK to 120, which is fantastic. And I'm really thrilled to say that we have 28% female colleagues, of which at the next promotion round, 50% of those colleagues are female. And that's because of their absolute merit and a lot of the effort that my colleagues put in to support. So I'll stop there because there's lots of knowledge sharing we do and fantastic. We did a board game evening one night in the office. We did online quizzes. So lots of different things that I'm happy to share should you wish to know more.
Oh, great. A board game evening sounds like a lot of fun. I hope there weren't too many arguments that broke out.
Quite a competitive bunch, I can tell.
Yeah. And Sheikha, what about yourself? What do you think that companies can do?
So the current company that I'm working for is a 100% remote company. And so I have colleagues from all over the world, mostly North America, but also from different parts of the world. So being an individual contributor, or have been I have been that for the past 8 years. And one thing that I have noticed is the company overall, their efforts show when they try to schedule regular stand-ups, regular virtual meetups, regular touch bases, one-on-ones. And I feel that's very important. And I have benefited from a lot of those types of meetings. in the beginning, when you get the invite, I know it gets a little bit and like, okay, another virtual happy hour or another virtual something. But when you actually are alone in your home office, not having anybody to talk to, and then when you attend this regular meeting or stand-ups or anything, that makes you feel valuable and that makes you feel important or a part of the entire group. So I think that's regular stand-ups, regular touch bases, one-on-ones. I think that's few of the many things that companies can do to ensure that engineers feel a part of the mission overall.
I wholly agree, Shika. And one of the things we really like to try and do is focus on the coaching side of that. So you have a formal coach who looks after your career, but having those connects, regular connects are really great. We have one especially for new joiners or return to workers. We have colleagues who've joined us who've been out of the industry for maybe 5 years or plus, taken a career break. And we love to get that cohort together, give them an update on what's going on in the business, help them network with people in the same position as them. And to your point, Shika, really feel part of something, regardless of where you're physically sitting.
True.
Yeah, and I'm pleased then actually that you mentioned new joiners as well, because obviously, normally you would join a company, you would go to the office, it'd be your first day, and you would meet your team. But it's very difficult now, can be very difficult to integrate, especially I joined a company in lockdown, and trying to integrate into a new team in lockdown was actually, it seemed quite difficult at first. Because I was thinking, how am I going to get to know these people that I've never met? But as you say, a lot of online meets and virtual drinks, and eventually, you get to know your teammates, because I felt quite awkward ringing people up and asking for things because I'd never even met them in person. So how am I going to work with them on a day-to-day basis?
Now that initial onboarding experience at the start of a new job is so important. I'm sure Shika would agree. Building those relationships early, up front, and making sure that they know who to network with, and having that chance to meet people outside the day-to-day job to expand that network. We focus quite heavily on that, because that is the piece that makes you really feel part of something, and hopefully will keep you in the company for months and years to come.
Agree, 100%, definitely.
So that actually leads us on nicely as well to my next question. So I want you to talk a little bit about on the 10th of October, so a couple of days ago, it was World Mental Health Day, and remote working can have a real impact on our mental health. Why is it so important to ensure that remote engineers feel fully supported? Shika, is that something you would like to start with?
Sure, why not? I feel I have gone through this. I was in a very difficult situation because me and my husband, we had to move from the US to Canada during the pandemic. And we knew nobody here. I knew nobody. I had no clue what I'd be getting into. But the only good thing was I was allowed to continue to work for the same company remotely. Now, it sounds cool now, and everybody wants to be remote. But the fact that it takes a lot of toll on you, your health, and everybody around you, I think that little thing gets lost somewhere in the conversation. And I cannot stress enough about how important it is to make sure that everybody in your team is included, feels supported, and also feels validated at some point. I know it's not, I know we do have most of the companies have different ways of showing progress, success, and congratulating someone on doing something great or achieving something really good. But now that we are remote, you never know who's going through what. At least if you'd had the water cooler talk in the office, or if someone's sad or happy, you'd know looking at them, their physical appearances, or let's say just their body language. But now that you're remote, you have no idea what's going on. And just that one little, how's your day going? Or what's new in your life, or what's happening, having somebody to talk to about your achievements or your struggles, doesn't have to be personal all the time, but even professionally, like Emily just mentioned, she has a whole new process for the new joiners and onboarding. That's so important because you're stuck when you're remote and you have no idea who to approach to. Or just a simple thing like, okay, even if it's about the benefits or even if it's about the entire process, because everyone's remote, you don't know who to ping and when to ping and how to talk to them because you have no idea how that person is. And I think working remote for the last 2.5 years, I have learned that it really takes a toll on you when you don't get to know your colleagues, and you work remotely. It sounds very cool. You get to give your home office a makeover, and you get all these cool gadgets and tech stuff and a standing desk. All that sounds very cool on paper, but if you don't have anybody to talk to for 8 hours, or at least 1 hour out of those 8 hours, then it becomes sad at some point. And that's why I feel some way or the other, you need to, if your company isn't supporting you, then you need to find someone in your group, in your team, or outside of your team, in your institution, that would help you make sure that you aren't going downhill mentally, and that someone's there to listen to you. And yeah, so that's what I think.
I actually, somebody said to me the other day, it sounds wonderful on a Netflix special if you want to work remote and you can work wherever you want, but actually when it comes down to it and you find yourself on your own quite a lot and you don't know how to interact with your own team, then suddenly it can feel very isolating. So I think you're absolutely correct. It's you want the balance of, I want to know my team, and I even want to know who their pets are and who owns a camper van, and all those silly little things mean that I can work so much closer with everybody, and our work and our output in the end is so much stronger because of it. Is that something that you agree with, Emily?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I was going to pick up on the points that you were both making. Us as leaders in the firm, like myself at Capco as a partner, it's contingent on us to create psychological safety, to talk about our own mental health challenges, or to talk about mental health and make that a starting conversation. Because as Sheka said, if you're new, you're working in a fully remote environment, how do you know who you can approach? Because you haven't got that ability as well to gauge someone's demeanor if you're testing a conversation like that. So we need to start that conversation and have that conversation on an ongoing basis. We're very fortunate in Capco that we invested and have still with us Dr. Alex Cutting, who is our in-house psychotherapist and psychoanalyst who looks after all of our colleagues. And we don't only have her doing seminars, she offers one-to-one sessions with our staff that you can book through HR in confidence. Of course, all employers, if you are a sizable employer, have other resources available externally, employee support. But Dr. Alex was really incredible, and we didn't just give her to our staff, we also took her to our clients so that our joint teams together could go through. In that stage, it was the getting used to the new normal of COVID, how after several months we were still in that lockdown scenario. And she continues to build on that, helping with sleep issues and all sorts of things that we all realized we were feeling. And I think sharing that conversation is really important as a company, and allowing all our engineers to feel included in that is really vital to a sustained and a modern workforce who's feeling supported and has a career that will take them into the future. I think we're all much more aware of COVID, what it's done to us around mental health over the last few years, not only physically but mentally. And I think sharing your own stories, I was able to share, I've shared on a couple of our blogs, and also we do lunch and learn sessions and online sessions. I shared about being, I'm a working parent, I have 2 children, and I got postnatal depression with both my children. And I also had one incident in the middle of being a parent, trying to juggle everything and finding my way. I had one incident of burnout on a project, and how my colleagues supported me, spotted it because I couldn't see it. and took me away from that situation. So that psychological safety, which one of my colleagues, Catalin, who's one of our very key leaders in our Capco engineering practice, he heads up the scaled engineering delivery section. He uses that terminology, and I think it's absolutely critical that we look at it that way.
Yes, and actually, it leads on nicely. You're talking about the pandemic there. I wanted to ask, how has the pandemic changed our way of working? I think though actually we've moved on a lot more from the pandemic as well, and a lot more has happened since then. And now that also includes, you know, cost of living and everything else that has changed our way of working, and how that integrates into our day-to-day lives. I've just seen a comment come through. Somebody said that they would like a Dr. Alexandra in their life.
Yeah, she is absolutely awesome. Her energy is boundless. Yeah, no, I think and I don't know if there are other questions probably coming in, which we should field as well as we go. But to your point around changing a way of working, I think it's fantastic. I personally think everybody needs a balance. We've probably went too far the other way. Presenteeism was an expected way of working. And Sheka, you're talking about working in a globally dispersed team, and that's fantastic, because we're missing so much talent if we're insisting people need to live in a certain metropolitan area or postcode or city or country even. And we are missing so much untapped talent, and therefore diversity of thought. So from my perspective, the pandemic has given us an opportunity to expand the talent that we can work with, and also to support each other in different ways.
I agree. I completely agree with that, Emily. And that's a very good point. I feel like I got to know so many different people from different cultures and backgrounds, and I wouldn't have gotten a chance to meet them otherwise if it wasn't for this company that I'm working with, which is 100% remote. I also get to learn how to work with different personalities of people remotely, which I think is a very huge factor that the pandemic has contributed and changed the way we work. Because now I know it's a very controversial topic of the video on versus video off, but I feel like our communication has gotten better with the pandemic, because now you need to make sure how you communicate and what you communicate, because you can no longer go walk up to someone on your desk and say, hey, I need your help with this. Can you just look at my screen and figure out what's wrong, if you're a developer or a QA engineer or any engineer. But now you have to do your screen shares, you have to exactly show people what's wrong and what you are struggling with. And it doesn't have to be just with your struggles, but it also, I think it changed the way how we measure our productivity and how we measure our success. And it's no longer these certain metrics or these certain numbers, but I feel like the pandemic changed a lot for everyone all over. And I feel like that's a good thing.
How many times have you tried to do a text chat and regretted it because you realize it's not landed? I mean, I've done it so many times. And that's one good thing about the remote world I'm finding, is because when we were all client facing, I've historically been on a trading floor in an investment bank, and you can't have any of your own Capco laptops, and there's no mobile phone. So there's no easy way for my Capco colleagues to get in touch with me. And now you can ping on Teams and there's a million chats going. It's like air traffic control. I'm sure you're all feeling the same. And you're trying to get stuff out, and you realize the pace of communication is much faster, but sometimes you write stuff and it lands really badly. So there is still an absolute need for that human interaction, even if it is a video call or a telephone call. And I think telephone is great if you've got something sometimes contentious to deliver, because actually giving people a break from this two-dimensional pressure, Dr. Alex talked about this a lot, two-dimensional pressure of interpreting someone's face in a 2D piece, it's very tiring. So sometimes just having a voice call is good. Go out for a walk while you're talking to someone. It's a great way to also process information and not stood at your stand-up desk all day long, Sheka. I've got one of those too. and an electric blanket 'cause it's a bit chilly, as I know Kaylee does too. But I think those things are really important, right? We've got to learn about how to use these different methods of interacting in the right way, and not just be lazy.
True. Agreed.
I'm going to tackle. Sorry, I can see there's a question I'm going to tackle, if that's all right, that I've just spotted. How long would you stay at a company that you feel isolated in? Is it worth staying for the experience, or would you advise moving ASAP for your own mental health? I absolutely would not recommend it. Where's the energy? Where's the sense of achievement if you are feeling lonely? But I guess the question to that individual who's anonymous is, have you found the ability to, Sheikah's great point earlier, have you spoken to somebody? Have you found someone you can trust? Even starting with HR, if there's an HR department, if you're not sure who to ask, say, I'm feeling this way, and give the company a little bit of a kick and a nudge so that you can transform them and not just walk with your feet. I would say, if it's not falling on the right ears, find someone else and just keep going for a bit. Don't give up straight away. But if you feel you've tried those things enough to where you're comfortable, then absolutely, I wouldn't recommend hanging around.
I think you're absolutely correct. I think, you know, what people worry about is that they join a new job, it doesn't work for them, and then they think, well, on my CV, it's going to look like I exited quite early. What do I do? You kind of hear from future recruiters that red flags are somebody that hasn't stayed at a company very long. But you do think, you know, mentally, how can I stick that out? So you're absolutely correct to try and, you know, find the correct people that can help you. And also as well, that siloed mentality of, you know, you can just work on your own thing in your own day, and you don't actually need to talk to anybody, I think is something that is quite difficult to get out of, and to make sure you get into a rhythm of talking to the people that you need to. Obviously, you know, if you're working on an engineering team and you have to work as part of a collective project, it's very important that you talk to people daily. Sheikah, you said that your company is 100% remote. Do you speak to people on a daily basis?
Yes, we do. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I feel like I belong to a team and the company's overall mission or the goal, because we have these events, and we have, so yearly Artisan does this event called Artisan Connect. And irrespective of whether you are a contractual employee or a full-time employee, it doesn't matter. Everybody is invited and everybody gets to attend this event yearly once, and you get to be a part of this culture, and you get to know your teammates, and you get to meet them, speak with them personally, and hang out with them. So I also am a firm believer of the Scrum methodology and the Agile methodology. I have benefited a lot from the one-on-ones as an engineer with my manager, and the retrospective meetings. I feel like the Scrum Master has a very important role, especially with remote engineering teams. And I'm talking strictly about the technical teams or a development team. Because you are working with, it's not just you and your task for the day that you're reporting, but you also get to know what everyone's working on and what others are facing in their line of work. And when you get to the retrospective meetings, you actually get to voice out your opinions. You get to hone the process a little better, and you also get to contribute. And that's where you know if the company is right for you, if your suggestions are being heard, if there's action being taken on what you are suggesting to them. It can be anything. It can be a simple suggestion like, change this tool to this tool. Let's stop using this. Why don't we look at this? Even a single yes from a manager that says, we can try that. Why don't you go ahead and start the proof of concept for that particular tool and see if that works? So that gives a lot of boost. And I feel that has helped me personally too. And like Emily already mentioned, getting to know, like, having all these virtual events and games and everything, I think that makes you not make you want to work in a silo flow or a situation that makes you want to collaborate more and work with your teammates more, because that ends up being a lot more fun than you just sitting at your desk or standing at your desk and working all day long.
Yeah, well,
and Sheikha, would you stick it out in a job though, or would you cut and run if you felt very isolated?
I would cut and run if I felt isolated.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
I mean,
I think again I would like to say I'm an extroverted introvert. And so like I said, it was very difficult for the last 2 years. And the minute I feel even in my previous companies, the minute I felt that I am being pushed to just work on my own on something and I can't collaborate or I cannot voice out my opinions, or if it's affecting me personally and my entire personality of the kind of person that I am, then I don't think that company would be a right fit for me.
Agree. And I was going to say, I am an extrovert, as you can probably tell. My talking is my core skill, as my children love to tell me. But I would say that it's critical, and I'm going to try and answer some of the other questions that we've got coming in. But it is critical that a company supports mental health. Sheikha's excellent examples given there, right? You absolutely need to have a safe place to be, and that's it's an emotional space, not a physical space only. It's everything about that. And I'm still at Capco 10 years later because of the people. I am part of something. Every time I get asked to do something else, I always find someone to buddy up with, because that's what it's more fun, and also you learn something fresh. So for me, that's got to be critical. I think there was a really important point that I do want to address, which is one of the colleagues on the call said that they're finding they're working much more extended hours though, because of missing those water cooler moments. And I think it's about, my advice would be, and I'm sure you've got great examples, Sheikha and Kaylee as well. I tried, when we were really in the lockdown situation, to turn one-to-one meetings into talking meetings on the phone. So at least getting out with the sky above my head. I'm from the north of England. I need oxygen on a regular basis, and it's got to be damp and a bit grey around the edges. So get me out there under the sky. That's so important. And I found some of my teams never left the house for 3 or 4 days because they lived alone. And I was horrified. I have children, so I had to get out, but they didn't. So get a different method of interacting with people so you're not at your desk all day long. I also block out time in my day. So I do my exercise in the morning after I've got my children up. And then I block out a bit of time around lunchtime to try and at least go and make a sandwich or salad. But you've got to be quite rigorous. And I actually put that time as out of office, and it fools people. They think I'm out of office, but I'm only out of office for that hour. If they were watching my diary, they'd see I'm back in half an hour. But it stops people ringing you and interrupting you when you're trying to just get a bit of psychological headspace in the day. And also look at the meetings you're on. That'd be my third and final bit of advice to our anonymous attendee. That is, do you need to be on every single one of those? There needs to be a proper balance of team meetings and too many meetings for meeting's sake. Or are they too long? Could 15 minutes cut it? Rather than a half-hour session? And could you cram 2 of those into 30 minutes and then have half an hour to yourself? I don't know, it's a bit of trial and error, I would say, but see what works for you, give it a go, and if it doesn't work, try something else.
And I actually agree on getting out of the house as well. And you're correct, when we were in lockdown, I lived on my own. And just having that 10 minutes to walk around the block and go and get a cup of coffee, I had to leave the house and talk to a neighbour on the driveway, whatever it might be. But you're absolutely right, you can spend days in the house on your own. And I loved it when, one of our developers would give me a call and we would talk about nothing work related. We would, talk about their children, or both of us were moving house, and I want to know the ins and outs of what's happening. But just to schedule a little time with somebody not to talk about work was so important. I've just seen another question come through. How often do you get together as a company during the year? Is that something?
It's going to be different for Sheikha versus me. We've got events going on every week, and they're open to all, whether you work in a capital markets client or you work in banking and payments, or there's an engineering day, there's a DE and I day we had in the office on Tuesday, but these all have ability to dial and join remotely, because we're very keen to support employee choice of working remotely if they wish to, hybrid or coming into the office. So we still have enough now, at least fairly decent technology. Our plenary spaces could do with some work on the audio visual, if I'm totally honest. But there is an option to join from a remote location. But if you wanted to physically come in, and we encourage, we put on gluten-free and normal pizzas, and we have drinks, soft drinks, alcoholic drinks after a day. So we're doing something in our office every week now, I would say probably twice a week. But formally, I think team events, depending on the clusters of the teams, maybe once a month. And then anything more broadly, we tend to have a Christmas or a summer party for everybody. That's what I would say. But Sheka, you talked a bit about this, but how do you manage to connect?
Oh yeah, it's once a year.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like it's different based on your role, because I have team members who meet the clients on a regular basis. So they fly in and out of different cities, and when they're meeting the clients, that's when they get to meet the other team members as well. And so it depends on your role, actually. If you're a scrum master or a program manager or a project manager, then you'd get to meet your team members way more often if it requires you to go meet the client, and that's an opportunity. But otherwise, it's once a year.
But I think, that supported, and it is critical. There is a question in the chat about mental health support. Sheka is a great example in her company of how that doesn't matter. It's not an impediment to healthy, mentally well in colleagues working, right, in a remote environment. Yes, you need that physical connect, and there's nothing that can replace that in the end. I would say that's my own personal opinion. So meeting people face to face, there's nothing like it. But you can do 99% of your working life in a remote or hybrid environment and still absolutely thrive.
Absolutely. I am a strong believer of that. I know I love meeting people. I love hanging out with people I work with or colleagues, and any chance that I get, I will make sure that I attend my colleagues' events or parties or anything. But with that said, I do feel that that doesn't have to be your crucial point or your crucial decision factor to decide whether or not you want to join a completely remote organization or one that supports hybrid. So yes, definitely.
Yeah, I think as well, there's a difference as well. I found that one of the hardest times of my life was when I was a freelancer, and that's also different. It's like you're a remote freelancer and trying to integrate into somebody else's team. So, and that really depends on the companies that you work with, how often they meet, whether you integrate with the team. Is there any advice you would give other companies trying to build and scale their engineering teams? Is there anything that you kind of experienced that you felt that had gone wrong for you, and you would like to share that advice?
I think you need to be transparent about where you're going. What's your strategy? What are your OKRs or objectives and key results? Share those, and then invite feedback from your employees, listen to them, and then actually do something with it. It's great. We all love a survey, but if you're actually not taking the action, it's more damaging than actually not doing a survey in the first place. So grapple those thorny issues, embrace them, and prioritize them, because you're not going to be able to fix everything, but be honest about what is doable, set context. That's definitely something we need to do, and build that psychological safety that I was talking about, that Catalin talked about when I was speaking to him from our engineering practice. Really working on role model behavior from the leadership team, encourage openness, encourage vulnerability, and therefore inspire and start the conversation.
You're correct. They're actually speaking about from the top down as well, because if you don't see it from leadership, obviously it's not something that trickles down to the rest of the team. So absolutely agree with that.
Oh yes, definitely. I feel like I got to know so much about Capco today, Emily, and it feels like it's an amazing place to work at.
You can come and visit. We have offices in Canada, so you'll have to drop in.
Sure. But yeah, I think being someone who's been working remote for quite a few years, I feel like companies should have or should start small. Like, you don't have to go and create a huge, get the entire company on a meeting and start a virtual happy hour just so that you promote more engaging teams and this engaging culture in remote teams. But I feel like simple things, for example, at Artisan, we have we use Slack for our general communication, and we have channels for people who are fitness, who are a lot interested, more than the others, like who are crazy about fitness. I don't want to call them fitness freaks, but about fitness. And then we have book clubs, and then we also have this chat where everybody, not everybody, but most of them share pictures on how their weekend was or what they did. So I get to see what people do and what kind of people my teammates are and what kind of hobbies they have. For example, there's this one person who has this amazing van and who's been living the digital nomad life in the US, and he shares pictures often, and that's so amazing. And that's one other thing that I feel is, that kind of encourages you to also chime in and say, hey, you know what, even I'd been there, I'd done this, I've done that, and this was good. And that gets the conversation going, and others who might not usually share their weekends or how their weekend was or whatever might chime in. I know we share when we have babies or when we are getting married and all that, but doesn't have to be once a year. It can be something that you do every week, very small thing, and just a random question on a Friday. For example, Halloween is coming up, so something around that. So it doesn't have to be super great. You don't have to be, it doesn't have to be at a high scale. You can start slow. That would be one of my advice. And then set boundaries. Allow your employees to have boundaries. For example, I loved how Emily said she blocks her calendar, and she blocks it for her fitness, for her exercise, and then she blocks it for her lunch and all that. I think that's so important, and everybody should follow that, because setting boundaries is one of the biggest factors that will somehow contribute to your mental health when you're working remote. I know some people have this compulsive nature of checking their emails outside of business hours, replying to them. It's okay to check, but replying to them and also expecting the other person to reply. I get it. If you're on call, if you're the tech on call, and if you have to do that, then that's fine. That's your job, and it's one of the responsibilities in your role. But besides that, I think letting your employees have that work-life balance while working remote and respecting their boundaries. If their calendar is blocked, that's it. Don't text them. If their Slack status says in a meeting, don't ping them. If they say they're out of office or something, that's it. And unless it's super urgent or it's very important. So I think these are the very small, few little things that companies can do to make sure that their employees feel like they have someone to listen to, or they're part of a larger collaborative team.
Totally agree. I've had a couple of questions about Capco's hiring process. I'm sorry I accidentally pressed the wrong button, but I have pasted 2 links, because the engineering interview process we have is available to publicly read, and our website. So do have a look, and hopefully that will answer all your questions. But I probably don't have time to cover all that now, because we are on a tight time schedule. So I hope that gives you enough information to go. Can everyone see that though? That's what I wanted to check, because I did it in and answered.
I will double check. If not, we will grab the link. So
yeah,
yes, we are due to end actually soon, but we will follow up with the content on SheCanCode.io, so we can follow up with your links. There are also lots of other questions put in the chat, so thank you very much everyone for interacting. We'll follow up afterwards and do a couple of more answers to those questions, and we'll post this along with the answers to those on the site.
I think I will, if I could, okay, as it was me that had to run off, but I've just pushed something back. But just, I would like to answer that one about where people get the remote working wrong. And I have observed it just in some client scenarios. And I think it's where they mandate that you have to come in so many days a week, say 2 days out of every working week or 3. And they mandate that it has to include one day that's a Monday or a Friday. I've seen that live scenario in a number of large institutions. You can kind of understand the thinking about it, but it's not great for employee choice. Other things where it's gone wrong is where there wasn't any remote working at all. And I've had that a lot in the past. So I think we've hopefully moved on from that scenario. That was one of my own personal ones. And we'll answer the personal boundaries one separately, but I think it is important that if someone's not feeling comfortable, they can find someone to speak to, because if the boundaries are not what you're expecting, so how do I set my own personal boundaries? What are you comfortable with? I think that's the question I would ask you. What are you uncomfortable with? And embrace who you are. Be yourself at work. That's a lot of what we are at Capco. We encourage people to speak up if something isn't cool and isn't working. So I just wanted to try and at least acknowledge those questions before we close. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. That's actually a great place to end the session. And as mentioned, we'll follow up on SheCanCode.io as well with some extra answers. So thank you so much, ladies, for joining us today. It's been a really interesting discussion. And as Sheka said, we've learned a lot during this course. So I will end it there. But thank you so much, ladies. And we will hopefully have you back for another discussion soon.
That'd be lovely. Thanks, Sheka. It's been great partnering with you on this. And thanks, Kaylee, for facilitating with Alison. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye all. Bye.